What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, and thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for rocking with me another time for another week. Thank you for sending this to a friend, watching it all the way to the end. Thank you for sending me a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. That continues to be super helpful for me. Thank you for going to Patreon and getting on there and getting your electional report so you can help to time your business and your life more appropriately to go with the stars. Thank you for going to Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, Apple Music, wherever you like to get your music at, and finding Zamboni Funk on there and listening to the music. I know I said that I hoped that new music was going to come out this week. It's out of my hands at this point. It's not going to happen until it happens. So I am heartbroken about it. You will get new music sometime soon, I promise. But in the meantime, let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So this week we've got, maybe there's some wisdom in not moving forward on things this week because we are deep in the middle of a Venus retrograde. And so, and by the middle, I mean not the middle yet, you know what I mean? This is like the hard part. This is the depth of the hard part right now. We are not to the point, we're still in a point right now where if you're like headed through the woods, like we're still getting deeper into the woods. Things are still becoming more confusing, more difficult to understand, more difficult to deal with. We're still getting to a point where if it's Erishkigal, then we're in this place where we're still like removing the armaments and the protective gear and talismans and amulets and this kind of thing, right? So like we're still at a point where the Venus things are not working properly and seeming to go awry. And so we're definitely going to be, so that with that as context and backdrop, then we can also take a look here and notice that Mercury, who is now in Virgo along with Mars, you would think that Mercury is going to be really strong and nice in Virgo. I'm not wild about this situation. As Mercury gets closer and closer to Mars, so Mercury is slowing down at this point, preparing for a retrograde. So not only do we have this opposition to Saturn, as well as an upcoming opposition to Neptune in Pisces, and Mars is getting closer and closer to that opposition with Neptune in Pisces this week, then these two are just going to be, Mercury and Mars are just kind of hanging out together. They're about 4 degrees apart, and they're just going to move, they're just going to track together at that 4 degrees apart, which is a pretty close conjunction. So this sort of situation is, whenever I see Mercury and Mars together, I think about sharp words or difficult communications, angry communications, this kind of thing, right? It looks like a time where, especially if you think you're right about something, then this is a time to like get really in somebody's face about it. But like we're working on bad information or like low information in some kind of way, right? We can see this opposition to Neptune, which looks cloudy and confusing. We can see that Mercury is getting ready to station retrograde, and that station is actually, it itself feels a little delayed. It feels like something that's going to take a long time to get here. We're about 2 weeks away from the station even, so there's like a whole bunch of time for being super aggressive with the communication before you realize that you were wrong, right? So be aware of that tendency. If you feel like you're really right about something, make sure and double and triple check. Make sure that there are no holes in your argument, because there probably are, and it might not even be like where you are with it. It might be a situation where you don't have the right information or something like this. So like there's plenty of opportunity for that sort of stuff to happen. Also, maybe it's not you. Maybe there's bad information that somebody else is working on or something like that, and they're being super aggressive and in your face about it, right? So that can generate angry communications, sharp tongue, this kind of thing, right? So that, especially since we can see that the Venus thing is having a tough time here. And if we think about Venus as having a tough time, being under the beams of the sun, being retrograde, being deeply, wildly uncomfortable right now, we can think about Venus as being like in the hot part of the sauna. It's like 200 degrees where Venus is, and you can't get out. You're just in there, sweating it out, hoping for the best, hoping to make it through, right? That's where Venus is in the situation. So Venus is the principle of like togetherness and cooperation and harmony and stuff like that. All that shit is like kind of out the window right now. But then also we can see that Venus is ruling Taurus as well. So that's where Jupiter is. And so Jupiter is just kind of unsupported at this time. Now Jupiter is nice, and Jupiter, you know, Jupiter is a super bright planet and super bright in the sky right now. And so it's not like you know, it's not like all hope is lost or here or something like this. But Jupiter is definitely not as effective as you want it to be, especially seeing that Jupiter making this trine to Mercury and Mars in Virgo. You think that that's going to be some kind of like helpful situation that's going to be of benefit, that's going to like help everybody out in some kind of way. You know, we're at a point where it's like, I don't really know if this Jupiter is going to be that helpful. So Mercury and Mars, opposites of Saturn and Neptune, look like they can get into all kinds of trouble. Maybe, you know, if we're thinking Neptune here, maybe it's fantastic in some kind of way. Maybe there's some kind of fantasy element of like, you know, making up stories that, you know, so a narrative fits in a way that you can oppose. Somebody, shout out to Vanessa, said on Twitter the other day, like most of Twitter is imagining what people you disagree with would say and then having a snappy comeback to that. And have you ever heard of the shower before? Like, this is a great time to let that out in the shower. Make your snappy comebacks in the shower and this kind of thing, right? But maybe you don't need to start a whole fight with a person about that, because that looks like a moment that can get out of hand. It looks like the sort of situation where you can really, like, in a couple of weeks' time, the more aggressive you've been now, the more of an opportunity there's going to be to put a foot in your mouth. Or get kicked in the teeth. That's another option here. So like, be easy with some of this stuff as we move through the week here. It looks like, you know, I have been, and if you are on my Patreon, then you will have heard me say already, like, leaning on the sun seems like a good look here. Now, so there are a couple of ways to do that, because the sun looks really good in Leo, right? So the sun is very capable of doing sun things. There's like a sort of shining the light component here. And honestly, you know, for a little while, the moon is going to be in Taurus and is then going to be in Gemini after that, and making nice aspects to the sun. So this looks like the sort of situation where the luminary situation, the shining the light component, looks very possible. You know, the key here is going to be to not be too much about me. One of the things that I've been thinking about, just a little while ago, I was doing some ceremony and prayer and stuff, and I wanted generosity to come my way. And one of the things that came through in that moment was like, you got to be generous. You got to give in order to push the wheel of fortune. You have to give to that, right? Like, generosity is not unidirectional. Generosity goes out as well as in, right? And so if we're thinking about the sun in Leo, the king, the queen, the sovereign, the one who's like in charge, the center of gravity, the one who shines the light, this little light of mine, right? Then there is an opportunity to shine your light in a way that can be helpful to others, in a way that can help others to grow, right? You know, like somebody one time said, make like a tree and grow slowly while also helping others around you to grow, right? Like, this is that kind of vibe here. Like, you can, the sun has a certain kind of consistency to it. The sun just is constantly doing the thing that it always does. It never goes retrograde. It always just does, it like creates our sense of rhythm and timing, right? And so there's a way to lean into that kind of reliability, especially a sort of self-reliance. I can trust myself because I can get up in the morning and make good things happen in my life. And then that brilliance shines out into the world in some kind of way that makes the whole thing more generous. That is where the real power is this week. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'll check you out next week.